Welcome, everybody. Today we'll discuss spring wellness. Seasonal shifts are considered powerful times in Ayurveda, and a time to sort of pause, take in what's going on around us in nature, and reset our diet, lifestyle, habits, routines to align with that. So the spring is kind of the new year in Ayurveda. Everything is coming back to life. And we just had the spring equinox, was technically on Tuesday, which that is a point where the day and night are equal in length. And as we move beyond the spring equinox, the days start growing longer and until we get to the summer solstice. The spring equinox is also the midway point between winter and summer solstice. So the earth and water elements predominate at this time of year in the spring. And so you can think, what do earth and water make, right? They make mud. So that's kind of the energy that we're going into. The qualities of spring are cool and heavy and moist, and humid would be another way to say it. And in Ayurveda, the quality that we use to describe moisture is oily. It's the opposite of dry, is oily. And it's a little, at first I was like, what is that? Why isn't it just wet? And springtime is very wet, but oily is more the therapeutic opposite of dryness, right? So if you have dry hands, you're not just going to run water over them to moisten them back up. You're going to want to put something fatty on, lotion, oil, whatever it is, to bring the moisture back in. So that's why in Ayurveda, the therapeutic opposite of dry is oily. And when we think about this idea of how the spring is like a muddy time of year, oiliness indicates that it's thicker than just water. There's more substance to it. It's heavier. And in Ayurveda, we know that like increases like. So more cool, more heavy, more moisture, more oiliness is going to equal more mud. Whereas opposites balance. So bringing in more warmth, lightness, dryness, that is going to equate to less mud. And so what's happening in spring? Why are we getting this mud situation going on? Just as in the external world, the snow-capped mountains are beginning to melt and the water from them is rushing down the hillsides and creating mud once it reaches the bottom and gorging rivers along the way. Your body is starting to melt the insulating layer of fat that it built up over the winter months. We accumulate fat in the winter because fat helps to keep us warm. So come the springtime, the body starts to sense into, now we're shifting toward more warmth, more daylight, more activity, more heat. And the challenge is going to be keeping cool rather than keeping warm. So we're going to start to, same way as like a dog sheds its fur, we're going to start releasing that fat. And this creates the potential to become kind of waterlogged with congestion and stagnation, which in Ayurveda, we call kapha aggravation. So spring is really a season in which kapha dosha predominates. So folks who are already kapha dosha predominant will need to be extra careful during this time of year that they don't go out of balance. And all of us, regardless of what our body type is, are more prone to kapha imbalance during the springtime. And if you don't know what your body type is and you want to find out, you can go to indraholistic.com/quiz and take my quiz to find out. So this waterlogged congestion energy that's going on, this also tends to weaken the digestive fire. And so it leads to sort of sluggish digestion, where it's almost like there's mud in the digestion. What does sluggish digestion look like? So it looks like having a really low appetite, never really getting a strong hunger, feeling tired after you eat rather than energized, experiencing more mucus and perhaps even nausea from the excess mucus in your stomach. It can also translate into constipation, where you don't have a bowel movement every day, but when you do have a bowel movement, it's a solid, well-formed stool, unlike dry type constipation, where the bowel movements are more like difficult to pass and rabbit pellet stool. In this scenario, it's going to be easy to pass, but it's well formed. It just takes a while to get out. So the sluggishness there, everything's kind of moving slowly through the digestive tract. Also, this time of year, the liver is working overtime for a number of reasons. One is the liver is responsible for digesting all fat that comes through the body. So it's digesting that winter layer of fat plus any fats that you're eating. Also, a lot of toxins hide out in the fat tissue because it's a good place to, they're similar in nature to fat. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And there isn't a lot of circulation through the fat tissue. So it's a good place for them to hide out and not be found. So as we start metabolizing this built up layer of fat, these toxins get liberated and are then sort of swimming around in our circulation. And it's the liver's job to detoxify the body as well as metabolize all the fat. And that's why we see conditions like spring allergies and colds and congestion. Partly why we see that is a taxed liver. The liver's having a hard time working all those toxins out along with all the fat. So we want to be extra kind to our livers this time of year. In Ayurveda, we know that different doshas predominate in each season. Like I said, springtime is sort of the time where kapha predominates. So there's usually one dosha that's predominating, one dosha that's sort of next in line to predominate. So it's accumulating during this time of year, it's building up. And then there's usually one dosha that is sort of out for the count. They're happy as a pig in mud during that season because it's completely opposite to their qualities. So this time of year, Vata dosha tends to be content and not give us too many problems. We are dealing at the solstice, we are dealing with a change from one season to another. And that any kind of change tends to provoke Vata dosha. So for that interim, we want to be mindful and manage Vata dosha well. But then as we get into the springtime, the warmth, the humidity, that is paradise for Vata, which is normally very cold and dry. Pitta is sort of next up. Pitta is going to predominate in the summer months. So this is the time of year when Pitta can easily build. And so we want to be mindful of that, just in terms of thinking about these dynamics that are going on in our bodies. If you're someone who tends toward inflammation, if you're Pitta predominant, you want to be careful with the kapha pacifying things that we're going to suggest for spring. You want to be careful that they're not going to be creating too much heat and aggravate pitta in the long run. So what can we do to keep the doshas balanced, and particularly to keep kapha in check this time of year? Now, there's always room for individuality in Ayurveda, right? Ayurveda recognizes there's no one size fits all solutions. Everybody's different. The circumstances of your life may require a completely different path than what I'm going to talk about today. But this is sort of the general recommendations for folks who are healthy, to keep balance through the seasonal change. So, in terms of lifestyle and daily habits, routine, number one, wake up early. Don't oversleep. So you want to be getting up close to sunrise, ideally, depending on your work schedule and your life circumstances, but you definitely don't want to be sleeping during the daytime, and you don't want to be sleeping in too late. So avoid oversleeping. Number two, move your body. This is a time of year, all this fat that the body is metabolizing, it creates energy. So you should have more energy than usual, and start to feel that itch of cabin fever that's making you want to get outside and, go for hikes, ride your bike, take a walk, whatever movement looks like for you. You want to really start bringing that in on a regular basis. We also want to bring in the dry quality. So if you're someone who normally does self-oil massage, you might think about switching to dry brushing this time of year. Like I said, kapha is oily. This time of year is muddy, right? There's excess moisture, humidity, warmth is coming. Right now, where I am in the Northeast, it's still cold outside, so it's still appropriate to be doing self-oil massage right now. But as the temperature starts to increase, as we start seeing more, 70-degree days, we're going to want to think about shifting into dry brushing. And if we continue doing the oil massage, we're going to want to make it a little more vigorous. Kapha needs stimulation, needs movement. The heaviness of kapha, the heaviness of that mud, can really get weighed down and stagnant. So we want to do what we can to keep things flowing. A dry sauna is a nice thing to bring in this time of year if you have access to one. It's a good time of year to start doing your neti pot. I don't generally recommend doing a neti pot every day indefinitely, because it can dry out the sinus tissues, and then sort of the body reacts by creating more mucus to lubricate the nasal passages. So when there isn't congestion for most of the year, I recommend, don't use the neti pot, only use it when there is congestion. And when you don't have congestion, use Nastya oil instead. However, this time of year is a good time of year for most people to start bringing the neti pot into regular use. If you don't do it every day, maybe a few times a week, especially if you're somebody who's really sensitive to pollen and allergens, this is going to help to keep your nasal passages clean and clear, prevent buildup there. Also, folks who are prone to sinus congestion and sensitive to mold, this is a time of year that really breeds that. So doing your neti pot regularly first thing in the morning is going to help to prevent that. I always recommend, after you do the neti pot, to put a little bit of oil on each of your pinky fingers and just massage the nasal passages with oil so that they're not getting too dried out. And so I would continue that neti pot practice until mid-May, mid to late May. And by then we're pretty clear out of the, moving into the summer, towards the summertime. And so you can just use it as needed after that. So dietary shifts. This time of year, we are going to want to favor warm food and drinks, which you should have been doing in the winter time also because of the cold. So we want to counterbalance that cold with warmth, and in the spring it's still cool, it's getting warmer, but kapha dosha is cool in nature, and stagnancy is cool in nature, cool and heavy. So the warmth helps to encourage circulation and movement and stimulation. So I recommend taking your food and drinks warm. And, if you are going to have a salad or something like that, have it midday, the time of day when it's going to be the warmest outside. Eat lighter, favor a lighter diet. So this is going to mean more vegetables, more legumes, more of the lighter grains like millet, amaranth, barley, and less animal products, less heavy, rich, oily foods. Like during the winter time, we crave those heavier foods because our digestion, our agni is a lot stronger. The warmth in the body is being contained in our torso area to keep all of our vital organs warm. And that naturally increases our digestive fire and our appetite. So we're hungry for those richer, heavier foods. And we want those richer foods to maintain that insulating layer of oil. This time of year, the body is starting to prepare to release that oil, release that fat that we've accumulated over the winter and cool off. And so we want to go with that trend and favor a lighter diet, more vegetarian meals. If you are going to have animal products, have them at midday. This is also kapha dosha. Like I said, it creates this sluggish digestion, right? And so you're probably going to notice naturally that your appetite isn't as strong. You're not as hungry as you were 3 months ago. And so you need less food to fill up, and lighter food will fill you up. And lighter food will digest more easily and thoroughly this time of year because everyone's digestion is a little bit more sluggish. So yeah, millet, buckwheat, cornmeal, quinoa, oats, rye, popcorn is a nice snack to have this time of year if you snack. And if you are going to have meat, go for the lighter meats, meats that are lighter in color, like chicken breast and turkey, and less of the, steaks and heavier meats. So we're gonna also, greens are particularly great to work into your diet this time of year. So radish, spinach, okra, broccoli, artichoke, asparagus, kale, collards, chard, whatever green vegetables you like, green beans, favor them, add them to your cooking. And this is because the liver, because we want to bring in the bitter, pungent, and astringent tastes. And green vegetables are one of the few sources of the bitter taste in our American diet. The bitter taste is very cleansing to the body and particularly supportive to the liver. It stimulates the liver to release bile, which detoxes the body and helps to release fat, to let go of that fat that we're trying to metabolize. So by eating a lot of green vegetables, we support the liver in the challenging job that it has this time of year. This can look like, steamed salads, maybe even salads if you've got strong enough agni for it, if your digestion is strong enough to eat cold food and not feel weighed down by it or get congested by it, you can start eating salads. And just incorporating the green vegetables into whatever it is that you're cooking, soups, stews, whatever it is. Corn is another nice vegetable for this time of year. It's very pacifying to kapha and helps to, it's astringent. So astringent is another one of the tastes that balances kapha and that we want to bring in this time of year. Astringent it's less of a recognizable taste and more of an experience. So astringent foods are foods that kind of act like a sponge. They suck out some of the moisture in your body. So a lot of times, if you think about like a classic astringent food is something like cranberry or pomegranate. When you eat it, it's almost like your mouth gets drier after you eat it. Some other foods that have astringent properties are legumes. They tend to create dryness in the body. Dried fruit, raw vegetables are also astringent. So, and the cool thing about bitter and astringent tastes is that they balance both kapha and pitta. So those are good foods to favor for folks who, are thinking about the pitta aggravation that might be coming in the summertime. If you're somebody who tends to get inflammation, irritation, excess heat, bitter and astringent foods will really be supportive to you in both the spring and moving into the summertime. Pungent taste is another taste that balances kapha. But it's aggravating to both vata and pitta. So folks who are truly kapha can really benefit from the pungent taste. Folks who have some vata and pitta want to be careful because the pungent taste can be very stimulating and drying for vata types, and it can be very heating for pitta types. And by pungent, I basically mean spicy things, chili peppers, black pepper, ginger are all examples of pungent foods. It's mostly spicy hot spices. And those are great at clearing congestion and excess kapha in the body if that's the only thing that's going on. But if there's other things that are going on too, if pitta and or vata are aggravated, we want to be really careful about how we use the pungent taste. We want to, in terms of dietary guidelines, there's some things that we want to make sure we avoid this time of year while kapha is predominant. And those include heavy oily foods because kapha is heavy and oily in nature, and excess carbs and oil in particular. So we don't want as much grains as we might have been eating in the fall and in the winter time. We don't need as much root vegetables in our diet as we would have in the fall and the winter time. So we don't, and that's because heavy oily foods are similar in nature to kapha. This is animal products are an example, fried foods, dense foods like almond butter or avocado. I mean, a little bit here and there and mixed in with other, lightened up with vegetables and other foods is okay, but we don't want to be relying on the heavy, rich foods. We want to limit our intake of the sweet, sour, and salty tastes. So salty taste is pretty obvious. That's salt, any kind of seafood, seaweed, tamari, miso. Those are salty foods. Sour taste includes any citrus fruits as well as fermented foods. So we don't want to have too much of those in the springtime. Though that taste, the sour taste, encourages water secretion and production in the body. And you think about it, if you eat something like an orange, it's very hydrating. Your palate, your mouth is usually wetter after you eat something like an orange versus a cranberry, like I was talking about. Excuse me. And so sweet foods are the heavier, richer foods like animal products, nuts, seeds, root vegetables. It's not like you can't eat those at all, but we want those to be a smaller portion of the food that we're eating. And saying this, Ayurveda recommends having all 6 tastes at a meal. So sweet, sour, salty, pungent, bitter, astringent. Ideally, for a healthy person with good digestion, we want all of them on our plate, just in differing proportions. So in the springtime, the larger proportions should be the bitter, astringent, and pungent foods. if you can handle the pungency. And the smaller, we'll have smaller portions of sour, salty, and sweet foods. We want to also avoid and limit limit dairy this time of year, especially in the morning or at night, because dairy is very similar in nature to kapha dosha, right? It's heavy and oily and rich. So we don't want to have that first thing in the morning when we wake up. Our digestive fire tends to be the weakest. And so we don't want to put something really heavy. It's like trying to start a little fire and you've got a few embers there and you drop this giant log on top of them. We're going to smother our digestive fire if we have dairy, especially cold dairy, first thing in the morning. And at night, kapha tends to build up overnight while we're sleeping. So we don't want to have dairy in the evening as the last thing that we've eaten, because it's going to support that buildup overnight. So if you are going to have any dairy, definitely have that at midday. We want to, like I said, favor lighter meals in general. And so you just want to be mindful, really letting your appetite guide you, because this time of year, everyone's digestion tends to get a little weaker. So if you're somebody that normally sits down to a really big breakfast, you might not need that this time of year. It might be enough to have a small bowl of oatmeal or some fruit. Pay attention to what your appetite is telling you you need and to when you feel full. We don't want to overeat ever, because it's really challenging for digestion, but particularly this time of year when digestion is weak. It's going to be easier if we just go with what we usually do. And while I usually have this gigantic sandwich every day for lunch or this huge bowl of stew for dinner, if we just kind of mindlessly go with what's habitual this time of year, it's easy to tend to overeat. So we want to pay attention. This is a good time of year to really cut out snacking. Again, digestion, generally speaking, is weaker, and kapha doesn't need a lot of nourishment to stay energized. Kapha is the dosha that has the most stamina. So it doesn't need, it's a good time of year to kind of burn up some of what you built up over the winter. And snacking is, if you are going to snack, fruit is what's recommended to snack on in Ayurveda, and at least an hour outside of your meals. But you shouldn't need to snack as much this time of year. And again, you just want to bring mindfulness to it. If you're someone who works outside and does hard physical labor, if you're doing landscaping or gardening, you're busting your butt out there, then yeah, you probably need a snack. But for those of us who sit at computers most of the day or don't get a lot of movement, we probably don't need snacking. And like I said, really want to avoid cold food and drinks this time of year. We want to favor warmth to counterbalance that coolness. Some herbs and spices that are useful in the springtime include ginger. Ginger is a great herb for all the doshas, so everyone can use ginger as long as it agrees with you. You want to tune into how it makes you feel. But ginger water is a really great thing to sip on throughout the day. And you can use fresh ginger or you can use dry ginger. Dry ginger can be a little bit more vata aggravating because it's dry, and it can be a little bit hotter for pitta. So if you're someone who has a lot of pitta and vata, you probably just want to go with the fresh ginger. And you can boil some in hot water, maybe like a quarter to a half-inch piece of ginger for 2 to 4 cups of water. Bring it to a boil, low boil it for 20 minutes. That'll make a nice brew of ginger tea. If you don't have time to boil it, you can just grate some fresh ginger into hot water. And if you are someone who is really kapha and you struggle with congestion and mucus buildup, then you can boil a half teaspoon of ginger in 2 cups of water and drink that. Especially you can do it before bed, and that'll really help to keep kapha, keep your head clear. In fact, the first time I did it, I used to struggle with a lot of kapha aggravation, particularly in the head. And the first time I did it, I felt behind my ears like bubbling and popping, like kapha just being broken up and disintegrating right after I drank it. It was pretty powerful. So yeah, half teaspoon of ginger in 2 cups of water, boil for 5 minutes, and then drink it as soon as it's cool enough to drink. Another nice herbal tea that is particularly good for kapha types and pitta types is cumin, coriander, and fennel tea. So you mix equal parts of each of the seeds, equal part cumin seed, coriander seed, and fennel seed. And what I'll do is I'll put a teaspoon of each one into a jar, shake up the jar, and then scoop a teaspoon of the mixture out to boil into about 2 cups of water. And boil it for about 5 minutes, strain it, and drink it. And that is going to particularly help to prevent fluid accumulation. If you're somebody who tends to get swollen fingers and toes and ankles, excess water weight, this is going to kind of wring that out. It's also really supportive to digestion, but it's not pitta aggravating, which is kind of a rare thing. A lot of times things that support digestion aggravate pitta. And it's also, this tea is a mild detoxicant. So it's good for, like I said, there's a lot of toxins that get mobilized in the springtime in the body. So it's good to support ushering them out. Hot water is also great medicine for this time of year. Hot water is very lightening and cleansing to the body. You can even add a teaspoon of honey to it if you're someone who is kapha predominant. That is going to help to, just lighten the body up. Honey has a scraping action in the body, so it scrapes accumulation, which kapha's nature is like needs to be scraped off and needs a scrub brush to clean it, like it's mud, right? We want to, in our cooking, use warming spices. So, these are spices that are on the pungent side, but not like cayenne pepper. So things like ginger, black pepper, cinnamon. If you are someone who is really kapha or struggles with a lot of kapha aggravation, cayenne pepper might be good medicine for you this time of year. And this is also a good time of year to think about cleansing in some way or another. So you could try fasting for 1 day a week, or maybe 1 meal a week, or maybe 1 meal a day. Maybe this time of year you shift from having 3 meals a day to having 2 meals a day. Maybe you fast on Thursdays or Saturdays a day, when you've got a little bit more of a low-key schedule. And fasting, a daily fast, it can involve, for true kapha types, it can involve not taking any food at all, just drinking water or tea. For folks who are vata or pitta, it can be, minimizing your food intake, eating really light foods. But not necessarily omitting food completely. For pitta, it might be like a juice fast. For vata types, maybe it's a khichdi fast or something like that for that 1 day. But make sure, consult with a practitioner to make sure that fasting is appropriate for you. And this, this method I'm suggesting is for 1 meal a day or 1 day a week. So, most healthy people can handle that. But obviously make sure that's going to be a good fit for you. And, if you're someone who's looking to fast for whatever reason, this is the time of year to do it. And we see this, there's a lot of spiritual traditions where this is the time of year where they fast in some way or another, right? We're in Ramadan, which is a time of fasting. Lent involves some dietary restrictions. So there's this history in different cultures of fasting during this time of year. And it's also a good time of year if you want a deeper cleanse to get rid of this excess fat, to get rid of the toxins that are being liberated, to support your liver in detoxing the body, to revitalize your energy, to improve your sleep. A lot of times folks can't sleep because there's a lot of toxicity swimming around in the body. If you're someone who struggles with digestive issues, cleansing can be a great way to support your digestion, because it sort of revitalizes the digestive fire. And so Ayurveda views seasonal transitions, particularly the spring and the fall, to be important times and opportunities for cleansing and rejuvenation. And fall and spring are ideal because the weather is generally mild. We're not extremely hot or extremely cold. So the body's not trying to find homeostasis in some outer extreme, right? The weather is usually pretty comfortable. And also during those times, we're shifting right now in spring from cold to warm. And in the fall, we're shifting from warm to cold. So those shifts initiate a lot of changes in the body that sort of optimize it for cleansing. Both nature and the body begin a process of shedding during these transitions. And by cleansing during this time, we tap into that natural momentum. And the body can more easily release waste and toxins stored in the deep tissues during these seasonal transitions of spring and fall. Cleansing also allows us to clear the past season's accumulations and gently reset the system for the season ahead. So as the days get warmer, the fat that we've stored over the winter, like I said, it starts melting and the toxins become liberated, and the time is really ripe to expel them. So cleansing kind of shows them the way out. Folks there's some exceptions to who cleansing is appropriate for. So not appropriate during pregnancy, not appropriate if you're breastfeeding because your toxins will come out in your breast milk. Not appropriate for folks who are very feeble, very old, or folks who are very young, like under 7. And also not appropriate for folks who are fresh out of chemo or radiation. You want to wait about 6 months before you do a cleanse. But for the rest of us, for generally healthy folks, Ayurveda recommends detoxing and cleansing at this time of year. And, so I wanted to talk for a minute about just what is a toxin exactly. And basically in Ayurveda, it's anything that your body can't digest. In Ayurveda, the term that we use for it is ama. But ama basically means undigested stuff. Most people think of toxins as some external thing that a factory produces, but actually it's something that your own body can produce because of poor eating habits or eating poor quality food, eating when you're not hungry, overeating. These scenarios and more can all lead to the accumulation of undigested stuff in the body. And something that is toxin for one person is not necessarily toxic for everyone. One person's medicine can be another one's poison, right? And it might not even be toxic to you all the time. In Ayurveda, we always, when we're evaluating whether or not something is appropriate for someone, we always ask for whom, when, and how much. Or that's, I guess, when we're evaluating whether something is going to be medicine or poison. We ask for whom, when, and how much, because sometimes it could be good medicine, and other times it could be detrimental. And our bodies, deal with toxins all the time. Usually the body excretes them through our waste, through our sweat, our urine, our stool. The lymphatic system flushes the intercellular toxins into circulation, and then the liver breaks up any toxins in the blood, and the kidney filters them out through the urine, and they're released through the pores of our skin. They're released when we exhale. And digestive organs eliminate them. But sometimes toxins are missed. Like I said, they can find a good place to hang out in the body, and the body has a harder time clearing them out. So toxins can come from our food, like I said. Indigestion is a big source of toxic buildup in the body. That's why Ayurveda recommends taking good care of your digestion, making sure to resolve any digestive issues, and really let your hunger and appetite guide you. Undigested food kind of lingers and rots in the gut. And when toxins are created from indigestion and have the chance to build up, they also begin to affect our mind and our mood, as well as the body. And that's why it's important to really be paying attention to how food is affecting your body, how it's making you feel, physically, mentally, energetically, all of that. A good way to do that is through a food journal, which if you'd like a template for keeping a food journal, you can download one at indraholistic.com/journal. Poor eating habits are another way that that we accumulate toxins from food. So too much food, the wrong food, eating one food in particular too much, like, just eating a ton of meat, like the paleo diet. Sometimes folks just get so gung-ho about protein, and that's the bulk of what they're eating, or someone who's really addicted to sweets, and that's the bulk of what they're eating. And the wrong food is food that maybe isn't appropriate for your body type, or isn't appropriate for some condition that you're working with. Like someone who's got a lot of inflammation, eating spicy food all the time. It might be that you're eating a food that you're allergic to, and that's creating toxins in the body. People who are lactose intolerant or gluten intolerant, but eat it anyway. Maybe they don't know, or maybe they don't want to know. And figuring out the foods that are best for you is an important part of Ayurveda, and understanding your body type feeds into that. Like I said, you can find your body type at indraholistic.com/quiz. But also paying attention through a food journal is gonna help you, because just because something is good for kapha doesn't mean it's good for every single person that's kapha predominant. Some people might have sensitivities that others don't. If your body sometimes can create toxins because of poor circulation or constipation, maybe you're dehydrated, maybe your lymph is congested for one reason or another. Maybe there's hormone issues and you've got some unprocessed hormones. Maybe your kidneys or your liver are weak, and so that's leading to toxic buildup. Maybe there's been some kind of sickness or injury that are contributing to toxic buildup. Maybe the environment that you're living in is contributing to toxic buildup, air pollution, mold exposure, fluoride in your water, whatever it is, toxic relationships in your life, stressful work environment, stressful home environment. Any of these can contribute to the buildup of toxins, and weakening your digestion, which then creates more of a buildup of undigested stuff. All right. When we're stressed out all the time, digestion is weaker because our body is in fight or flight mode rather than rest or digest mode. And that's going to make us more prone to toxic buildup. And so why does the body have trouble getting rid of toxins? We have these detox pathways. Why aren't they working? Well, it's somewhat to do with the nature of toxins. And this is why, particularly during this kapha season, it's useful to cleanse your body. So toxins tend to be heavy and sticky and cool and oily in nature, similar to kapha dosha. Kapha and ama, and undigested stuff, is very similar. When we look at Ayurveda, is very much a qualitative medicine. We use qualities to describe the body, to describe processes in the body, to describe illnesses that affect the body. And so toxins, or ama, are heavy, are cold, are oily, are sticky, are cloudy, all these same qualities that kapha dosha is. And we know that like increases like, right? I said that at the beginning. Like increases like, and opposites balance. So now we've got two things that are muddy, right? Toxins and kapha. Both of them have a tendency to build up in the body right now. So cleansing is like the opposite in nature to them. Cleansing is light, it's dry, it's warming. An example of, just to give you a physical example that is maybe easier to identify with in terms of toxins in the body and what they're like, it's like plaque on your teeth, right? That doesn't, yeah, you take care of some of it when you're brushing your teeth, but a couple times a year, we have to go to the dentist and really get it scraped off there because it's built up. Same thing with a deep cleanse in the body. A couple times a year, spring and fall, we want to give a really good scrub down. So where do toxins tend to build in the body? Initially, acutely, they tend to build up in the blood and the plasma and the lymph, in our circulation, and in our gut. So that's where they start building in the gut. Generally, the Ayurvedic disease process, all disease begins in the gut, generally speaking, in Ayurveda. So they start building there. And if we don't listen to the cues that our body gives us about the toxins building up, then they eventually sort of overflow out of the digestive tract and move into circulation. And then they're like swimming around in the body. And they're looking for a good place to hide out. They're looking for a place that's going to be quiet and dark and no one's going to notice them there. And those kinds of places, we call those places kavaigunyas in Ayurveda, which means a weak place in the body. So those can be places where you've had an injury. It could be somewhere that is naturally weak in your body for some reason or another, a genetic weakness. Maybe you had some serious illness that weakened that area. Maybe you were in an accident that, damaged that area. They also tend to gravitate toward areas that have poor circulation. So the joints, fat tissue, yeah, and places where stagnation is happening, where there's already a backup of other stuff, those are places where circulation is also going to be poor. So if you're someone that has poor posture, and that poor posture is sort of constricting circulation in some area of your body, that's going to invite toxic buildup as well. And common early signs of toxic buildup in the body are things like a thick coating on your tongue, feeling sluggish, right? This kapha kind of nature, sluggish digestion, low energy, fatigue, lethargy, depression, bloating, sleepiness, especially after a meal, even though you maybe are getting great sleep, but you just feel tired after you eat. Strong cravings for junk food is a clue that there's some toxicity in the body. The body's intelligence is compromised in some way. Breakouts on the skin, foul odors emanating from the body odor, bad breath, stinky gas or stool, stinky foul smelling sweat. And and sort of like a lack of luster in the complexion. The eyes are dull, the skin is dull, the whites of the eyes are dull, the teeth are maybe yellow. Also feeling cloudy in your mind, unable to focus, uninspired, generally just kind of not motivated. And so, how do we get rid of these toxins? There's a few layers to it. And this is sort of what a cleanse focuses on. We want to, one, remove the cause. So whatever is causing the toxicity in the first place, we want to do our best to take it out of the picture. It's not always possible to completely remove a cause, but we do the best that we can. We then want to build the digestive fire so that it can digest all the toxins that are in the body. And then clear it out, clear ama, clear the waste, expel that from the body. So with maybe something to really augment our elimination, whether that be a laxative or purgative or sweating, or something that's going to encourage a release. And yeah, so the best way that Ayurveda generally relies on to cleanse is through our digestive tract. Because if we have strong digestion, our body is going to be able to detox. We're going to be able to, eliminate through our urine, sweat, and feces, whatever toxins are in the body. And so that's what a cleanse aims to bring us into doing, generally speaking. And I'm offering a cleanse. I offer a 9-day cleanse every spring and every fall. And I'm offering one again this year that I'd love for you to join. It's a simple at-home cleanse that, I provide the recipes, the shopping lists, a suggested daily routine, video demonstrations of all of the practices that I ask you to incorporate into your daily routine. I give you resources as to where to buy all the products that you might need for the cleanse, which you don't need much. It's basically, what you would eat. You'll spend probably the same amount that you would spend on groceries, normal groceries, for those 9 days. We're just going to eat in a very specific and intentional way. I do suggest some herbs that, you have the option of buying, and some practices like using Nussia oil or neti pot, things like that you might want to buy, but you can choose what feels right for you and what you want to invest in. And none of the stuff is crazy expensive, maybe $20 for some of these things. And yeah, and it's over the course of 9 days, we begin by sort of taking things out, removing causes, okay? So, taking out bad habits, taking out things that cause stress, starting to get onto a good daily routine, and removing foods that might be problematic, and beginning to eat a really wholesome diet that's, food that you're going to be preparing yourself rather than processed foods or takeout. And, the things that you prepare, they're not elaborate. You don't have to eat Indian food. You can eat whatever way you normally eat. I just give you some guidelines as to how to choose foods to cook. And it's not like you're going to be spending all day in the kitchen or all day in the bathroom with this cleanse. You're also not going to be starving yourself. You can eat as much as you're hungry for throughout the cleanse. We just eat a really simple and wholesome diet, so that we're giving food that's easy to digest. So we're giving our digestion a real rest so that it can work on metabolizing all the toxins that are swimming around in the body, and so that it can also become reinvigorated, so it can get stronger again. And then the middle of the cleanse, we really dial in the daily routine and employ these Ayurvedic practices that support cleansing and detox. And, do our best to go inward and unplug from the outside world, lighten up our schedule, and, Yeah, and take out any stressors that we can. So it's good to plan ahead for doing the cleanse. If you think it's something you want to do, it's a good thing to commit to as early as possible so that you can safeguard that time, that period that we're doing the cleanse together. And then after and we're also trying to realign with natural rhythms. So waking with the sun as close to sunrise as possible, going to bed early, soon after dark, getting back into that natural rhythm, which feeds our body's intelligence. And then for the end of the cleanse, we start bringing in, more diverse foods again, and choosing which of the habits that we really stuck to during the cleanse we're going to continue carrying out into our regular life beyond the cleanse. So it's a time to really press pause, go inward, love on your body, sort of recommit to healthy habits, clear out any bad habits or excess weight or toxins that you've accumulated over the winter, and move into spring feeling renewed and revitalized, just like all of the life around us is doing as well. It's also good to help prevent spring allergies and colds, and if you're someone that struggles with hormone issues or poor sleep, trouble focusing, lack of inspiration, any of these things, these are the kinds of transformations that cleansers report doing just from taking these 9 days out of their life to take care of themselves. So this is a cleanse that's very accessible for everyday folks. I have people do it that are working, that have young kids, that have other demands in their life going on. It doesn't require that you completely shut down, but the more rest and chill time you can give yourself, the better during the cleanse. And again, as with everything in Ayurveda, it's adaptable to you, and I help you craft the cleanse layout that's going to work best for you. You've got choice throughout the process to decide what's doable for you and what isn't. And you get me along those 9 days, cheering you on, ready to answer any questions that you have, offer support and whatever you need, as well as a community of other cleansers. We have a group forum where everyone can share how the process is going for them and challenges they've had, things they could use help with, as well as breakthroughs they've had, and how much better they feel. And so, it's nice. It can be challenging to do it just on your own. It's nice to have that group momentum and know that other people are, making the same commitment alongside of you. So I'd love to see you inside the cleanse. You can go to indraholistic.com/cleanse to learn more about the cleanse and register for it. And yeah, and so any questions that you have, don't hesitate to reach out to me at info@indraholistic.com. I'll put the link to the cleanse page in the comments here. And I usually, right before every cleanse, shortly before every cleanse, I offer a free info session. So if you go to indraholistic.com/cleanse, you can see when the info session is and sign up for it. And if it's not on there, get in touch with me and I will give you the link to the replay so that you can see. I'll do a deeper talk about just how the cleanse works and what to expect and things like that, and answer questions that any of the participants have, so that we make sure everyone's really clear about what they're signing up for. So again, indraholistic.com/cleanse. I hope to see you inside. Thanks for tuning in.